All right, so welcome back to our jam session here, making sure that sound comes through well, making sure that my tunes are going out, fading out here so that we can actually hear what's going on. It was supposed to be slow, but it didn't work quite as well, so it doesn't matter. All right, so we're coming back. Welcome back to session 5, I believe, of our exercise in Python here. We are going to go and continue with our endeavor here. I am going to jump over. So we're currently going through loops. We're going to look through what we touched on the last time around, and we're going to march through that. We're going to attempt a quick exercise at the bottom of our process, and then we're gonna jump over to, let me check what we had in plan. We're going to jump over to functions, and we're going to start digging around in that, see what identifies a function, what the function in Python looks like, and start playing from there. All right, so let's hop over to our scene here. So as you remember, you would go to the website here that I have included. I'm just moving things around so you could see behind them, but you won't be able to. So you're looking at iligodfrey.github.io/Python Learn Marathon, and what you would do is, you would go there, and if you're starting from scratch, you would look for a run on Replit link, and then from run on Replit link, you will follow and click it through. It's going to pull stuff from the GitHub. It's going to take you to Replit website. So we are looking at loops right now. In order for us to run loops, we're going to be using loops.py Python file here, and we are going to be looking at Replit configuration. So in Replit configuration, make sure that your second line here says run equal Python loops.py. So let's do a quick run of that to see. So we did some work last time that we're going to revisit right now real quick, and we need to make sure that this is executing and running. All right, so let's take a look at loops.py. So we took a look at for loop. As I mentioned before, for loop presumes that you are iterating through a list of items or whatever other things you're going to be iterating through in a for each fashion. So you're going to go through all the items in that list. So that's what this ordeal here was about. It was about declaring our list with whatever numbers we had in there. Then we are running for loop through it, and we are printing our individual elements here, doing that. So next thing, we were looking at actual ability to look at the indices, right, for individual items. So we used a built-in function in Python called enumerate. Enumerate did the sorry about that. Enumerate. Let me just zoom out. So enumerate did the following for us. Enumerate pulled out an index and a list item, right? So it pulled out index first, list item second. And what we did here is we used the ability of tuple to unroll into variables, right? So enumerate returns a list of tuples, first of which is going to be index and second of which is going to be a value. And we have unrolled that tuple into an I being an index and L being the value. So we were able to print it out. And so we got this printout here with those values. The next thing we dove into is taking apart the dictionary. So we created a dictionary here I'll dict equal 1 first, 2, number 2, 3, 3.1, 4, true. So we created this dictionary of this, wild values. So the next thing that we did here, we did for k comma v in out dictionary items. So what we have done here, we have taken our out dictionary, we have taken it apart using function items, and the function items that is built into a dictionary type ended up returning a list of tuples as well, which are pairs of key and a value. And so what we have done in this step here, we have actually grabbed k, a key into a variable k and a value into variable v. They obviously can be a full-length variables. I just chose to name them, single character variables, which is generally acceptable within very narrow scope. And so I did that here. And so we printed out k and v, and we got loop through dictionary, we got k equal 1, value first, k equal 2, value 2, so on and so forth. That was the output that we got for this exercise. So there is also an ability to loop through just a number of steps. So, more often than not, we just need to run a loop for a set number of times. And, how would we do that? So Python has this type of a function called generator. We will take a look at generators once we actually go into functions. It's going to be kind of the next level conversation inside functions. So for right now, what you need to know is that when you call this generator function, what it does, it actually produces a single value at a time each time you refer to it, and it works within context of a loop, and it grabs the first value, then it grabs the next value, and it runs through those values until it reaches the end, whatever the definition for the end is. So right now we're just gonna go, without further ado, just write a for loop, and let's simply make, let's just run through a for loop of 10, right? So we're gonna write for I in, and then we're gonna call range, and then we're going to put in up to what value we want to run, and then we're just going to print. Let's do the good old fprint of I, and then above here I'm going to print testing range in for loop. So just to see what comes out of that, this produces as simple of an output as you might want for it. So let's go back to the little exercise. If you guys remember, when I built a list, I needed a list of 20 items that I wanted to splice in various ways, right? So let's go back to that expression. So the expression is going to be, I'm just gonna do pound being comment looking at list generating expression, right? So let's do our list, and it's going to be equal to, right? So we were using list comprehension. We were putting in oh, you know what? No, let's jump at it in a second, as soon as we actually touch on list comprehension here. Sorry about that. We'll put a little pin into this here. So Python has a very powerful optimization ability to iterate over lists of items and manipulate the output if needed. It is called comprehension. So let's actually take a look at the capability of the comprehension. So comprehension is a way to, it's kind of like ternary on steroids to sorry, hold on a second. You guys do realize that thing, right? Could you stop it? Yeah, sorry, little interruption here. So we are looking at going through a list of elements in a single line approach, kind of similar to kind of your ternary expression, things like that. So let's take a look at that real quick. So we have an ability, so let's do within the list comprehension, let's do that basic step. So we're gonna generate, let's take a look at list generating expression. Now that we mentioned list comprehension, I'm gonna break down everything that happens within that. So our list generating expression. So what we're looking at. So let's just form it now and then talk through what's in it. So we're going to be looking at putting an element I for this element I in range 20. Okay, and then let's print let's do f string. Our generated list is going to be our underscore list. Let's run that. Something went wrong. It of course helped me with double quotes, because why wouldn't it? So we have this little monster over here, right? Our generated list has all these elements. So what in the world is happening here? So list comprehension allows you to iterate over a particular generator or a list and extract a value out of that generator or a list and place it into individual spot. So what it ultimately does here is, if we were to write it out in a regular for loop, we would say for I in range 20, we would generate other list, right? So let's make empty list here, other list, and we would go into our list in that range, and we are going to do other list. I'm gonna try this here. I keep forgetting the right term for it. Append. And so we would do, let's do print for that one as well. So I'm just gonna copy, and I'm going to paste print then other generated list, and it's gonna be other list. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a quick breather. So what I did here is I created an empty list. I ran a for loop from 0 to 19, and I appended every element onto that other list. So let's run it, see if I got the term right. I did get the term right, so it is append. And so our other generated list is this, right? So we're literally, so what we're doing here, instead of creating, declaring an empty variable, creating a for loop, appending each element to the list, instead of that, we are calling a for loop inside the brackets, inside the list declaration. We are running the for loop with our element in range, and then we are saying, I want I to be placed here, right? So that's kind of a small jump here. Just like that's kind of not a big deal. What's the value in that? Well, so let's take a look at the next thing here. List comprehension convert all strings with numbers into list of ints. So let's pretend we have we have a list. Let's call it our numbers is a list with a bunch of strings that are numbers. So we have, 1, 2, 3, comma, 2, 3, 4. These are plain integers in then 25, then 42, because we gotta have 42, sorry, in a string format, right? So we have, and last one is, I don't know, 73, because of course. So we have this list of our numbers that are actually strings, right? So we got some output somewhere in a known format, and we got it as a bunch of strings. So the next thing we're looking at is we want to, so if we do print right now on this content, we can see that list of our numbers. We're gonna print that just so we see how they come out. You'll see why I'm actually doing that once it prints. So once it prints here, we are looking at list of our numbers being strings, right? So they're single quoted here. So I'm gonna come back to the actual write-up here just to let you catch up a little bit. So the next thing that we want to do, we want to go through all that, and we want to convert every single one of these strings into integer and end up with a list of integers. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a list comprehension. So instead of that, we're going to do our ints, and we are going to write equal. So let's write the for loop first, right? So we're going to go for s in our numbers. I chose s because it's a string. So for s in our numbers, right? So we're going to be iterating over our numbers, picking one list item at a time. The next thing that we want to do is, take that s value, right? Well, if we do that, all we're going to end up with is not going to be anything magical. So I'm just going to copy this line for simplicity. Hold on a second, sorry about that. So I'm going to copy this line for simplicity. And so we have list of our, let's just do it ints, just so we have this here. So if we run this right now, nothing's literally going to happen. We'll literally go through the same list and end up with the same set of numbers. Well, so what we can do when we place this string in here, we can convert it to int. I believe that's all I need to do to convert it to int. I might be, Python will call my bluff, and it worked. No, it didn't. Because, sorry, I printed the wrong variable set. All right, so it's not our numbers, it's our ints, right? So that's what we want. We want to print our ints. So before, when I had it just as a string, let's demonstrate again. When I had it just as a string, I had it in this fashion, right? So now if I go and say, hey, I want this to be converted to int, I'm gonna run, and that's what we get. So we get these values actually get converted to int one by one. So let's go back to this. So what we have here, we have our list of integers where each individual value got converted from string to integer. So that's kind of the quick take there. So what I'm thinking at this point, I want to revisit the exercise we did earlier for generating a random IP address. Let's try that, because I want you guys to kind of see what all we can do here to produce that output, right? So, I mean, it's definitely overkill for that particular exercise, but just to kind of pile on a bunch of things we have learned so far, right? So what we're going to do thus far, and I would like for you to try to kind of go ahead a little bit, and I'll just put scaffolding in, and we'll go from there. So let's go from random import rand int, right? So that's the first thing that we need to do. I'm just going to run to make sure that I didn't type anything nonsensical. Okay, so we got rand int, right? So the next thing that we're going to do, we want to generate a list of 4 random IPs, four random numbers between 0 and 255. So if you remember, just to help you with randint, so we're gonna have, if we do number equals randint 0 comma 255, and if we just do print number, we're gonna get a number somewhere between, so I'm just gonna run it a couple of times, we're gonna get, you know, a number somewhere between 0 and 255. Okay, so we got that. So next, we want to go into list comprehension and try to make a list of 4 of those random numbers. So go. Gonna time it for about, you know, a minute maybe, and then just hop in and kind of try to do that. So based on the list comprehension type of stuff we did before, let's try to do this. All right, a little bit of dead air to feel. Let's see what's tune is playing. No tune is playing. All right. All right, the background music ran out here. All right, so let's go take a look at actually creating a list of 4 random numbers. So we're gonna have, let's call them IP numbers. So what we're gonna do here, we are going to make a list, right? We're gonna go for I in range 4, right? So this will give us 4 numbers in a for loop. But then we don't particularly care for I, because we just want 4 random integers, right? So we would go rand int 0 comma 255. All right, so let's do print IP numbers to see that we're actually producing something meaningful. So let's do that, right? So we got 100, 245, 72, 192. 106, 234, 152, 135, right? So cool, we got that going for us. So we got a list of 4 numbers. Now, one of the interesting conventions here to note. So in a for loop, if we just need an iteration, we don't care for index. And generally, as a Python convention, if we have something that returns a value that we need a placeholder for, but we don't really need it, what we can do is we can replace I with an underscore. That's generally a Python convention to indicate that we don't care particularly for that value, but we have to have a variable placeholder in that spot. So we would run again, we would get our output again with this completely being acceptable. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to convert, well, so we're gonna do something with that, right? We're going to remember we did the whole join of those values. Well, there was a little trick to that. To join values, they had to be strings, right? So the next step here is we're going to need to take those numbers, we're going to need to convert them to strings. So let's create another one. Let's do it after the print. Let's do it IP num str. Just, I don't know, we have a variable that we need to have a name for. And so we are going to go and we're going to let's just go with, I don't know, n for n in IP numbers. So now we're going to need to take that n, right, and based on the, like if you think about this thing over here, so the trick is that instead of int taking string to int, we're taking int to str. So I'm going to, since I didn't mention the str conversion before, I'm just going to do this for you. So let's, based on that, let's do the print of IP num str. So do print of IP num str. Let's run this. So we have, right, we have this 106, 176, 235, 182, and now it's coming out in strings. Not terribly surprising, right? So that works out. And then the next thing that we need to do to actually output the IP address, remember we need to join all the elements into a single string, right? So what we're gonna do, if you remember, so we're gonna do IP address is going to be our output. That is going to take a period, do join, dot join, so that join is a bit weird, right? And then we are going to do IP num str, and let's do print IP num, no, IP address. So we are printing a random IP address. So if we run it over and over, we do that. So now that we did this, I'm gonna give you a minute to turn all of it into a one-liner print statement. So we're not putting it into a variable, we're just printing that output out. I want you to put a one-liner to produce me a random IP address. And I'm gonna turn up the music and let's go. It's gonna look great real time in recording. All right. So I'm kind of ballparking about a single minute here. And let's go. Let's take it on. So we're going to kind of onion it inside out, right? So we're gonna go for the, what did I click on here? Let's go. So let's go from the first expression here, right? So we're gonna do our line 54. So we're gonna start with rand int 0 to 255 for underscore in range 4. Okay, so that's cool. So that's going to be our first. I'm just going to run it just to see that it doesn't crash out, right? So it doesn't print anything, it just does that. So the next thing, we have that particular rand in 0 to 255, right? We're converting it to string. So we're going to convert it to string. So we got that next step here. So we wrap that in there. So now that we have a list of strings, all we do is we run star.star.join, open parenthesis, and then we close parenthesis on that, right? And then all we need to do is print this madness. Print, and so we're gonna get a different IP address printed below that. So that's, yes. So that's a way to express that. So now that you have gone from strings and you've gone, we looked at random a little bit, we looked at for loops, we looked at list comprehension, we're now able to concoct these types of things, and they are, if you just look at it in passing, it's quite painful, but once you kind of construct all these elements going up to here, you get to see this, single one-liner that is worth, however many lines of code in it. And I mean, some of the comprehensions, there is actually very good, I'll need to dig it up. There's a good book on things that are Pythonic and that are not. And you definitely want to, beware of this madness, because again, Python, you can imagine with like ternary expressions and list comprehension and things like that, you can really build a crazy one-liners, and definitely people do that on various coding sites, but some of it is just generally very powerful and very compact and is quite readable once you do a few of them. So that was fun. Let's jump into other capabilities here. So let's look at dictionary comprehension. So the same thing we're able to do for lists, we're actually able to do for other collections, that being dictionary. So and we are going to we're going to just look at the example here. So I'm just looking at what I propose here. Convert dictionary with number strings for values to integers for values. Okay, yeah, so we're going to do kind of a very similar thing to what we did above, to where we just want all our values in dictionary to be all our values in the dictionary from strings to be integers, sorry. So we're gonna go and we're going to look at let's take a look at source dictionary. Let's declare one, and it's going to be our squiggly bracket. First is going to be 1, 2, 3. Second is going to be 2, 3, 4. It needs to be a string. And then third is going to be 5, 5, 5, just so we have it. So next thing we want to do, we want to iterate through that list, grab the values and turn those values into integers, and then produce the output result. So we're going to call destination dictionary. Sorry, destination underscore dictionary. So what I want to do here, I'm going to, instead of squiggly bracket for dictionary, I'm going to declare, instead of square bracket for list, I'm going to declare squiggly bracket for dictionary. So let's do that. That's going to be, we're going to write expression in that. So the next thing we're going to run is a for loop. As you remember, iterating through dictionary, we want to iterate through keys and values, right? So we're going to do our usual, I'm just going to spell it out, key, comma, value, just to be a little bit specific. For key, comma, value in source dictionary dot items. So we are doing literally the same thing we were doing in the for loop above. We are grabbing a dictionary, we're breaking it up into key value pairs that come back as tuples. And so as we run through this for loop and iterate, we grab one tuple at a time of key value pair. The first value is a key. The first item in that tuple is a key. The second item is a value. And we break that tuple up, unroll it into key value pair. And so the next thing, we need to go to the left of it, right to the beginning of this expression inside this squiggly bracket. So the idea here, the way we would express both of those values in order to put them back into dictionary, is we would say, our key colon value. So again, key and value are variable names here, so that we don't, sorry, my eye is itching. So there is no special significance to name of this. So, our key can be my favorite donkey lobster. So let's make it Pythonic. Right, so it's just a variable that we grab here. So the donkey lobster has to be a donkey lobster here to match. Right, so key and value don't carry significance as names. They are just you have to have it in this spot here, and you have to have it in this spot here to match. So, all right, enough of this fun. Let's drop it back to key so it's more readable. Key, and then drop this to value, rather, sorry, this key as well. So if we just print source dictionary and print destination dictionary right now, nothing is going to change, right? So we're going to print them. They show up here at the bottom, both our source and destination exactly the same, right? So what we need to do, we actually need to manipulate value just like we did before. All we need to do is just go, hey, convert value to int if you don't mind. And we're going to run that. And here we get a different output, right? So we have processed our items and we have grabbed our value and we converted it to integer. So let's go back. I'm going to zoom in on this list. I'm going to let you guys catch up. And then we're going to take a look at the zip generator. All right. So the next built-in functionality that we have that's very nice, and there are various elaborations on this as well. There's this capability that's called zip. What it allows you to do, it allows you to take two parallel arrays and walk through them, grabbing two values at a time out of each array. So let's see what in the world that is. So let's it sounds weird and like, why would you need that? But there are plenty of situations where you end up, it's another way to munge and manipulate your data, extract it from different sources, line it up. If you know that things appear in the same order, things like that. Python is really, as a natural, native language, is all about just, smashing data in various ways in very rapid, short expressions, kind of to work with it. All right, so I have an actual decent example here below. So let's start with zip generator. So what we're looking at, let's start with list 1, and it's going to be equal to, it's going to be A, comma, C, comma, D, comma, E. Sorry, that doesn't matter, but let's just do double quotes for consistency, right? And we have list 2, that's our, 5, 23, 42, 74. We have 4 items here, 4 items there. Cool. So what we're looking for, in some environments, something happens where we have two lists that we need to collide into either a dictionary or whatever, we have basically lists in correlated, coming out in correlated manner, and we need to pair them one with the other to produce a result of some sort. So let's just run a for loop, and we're gonna do, let's make an L, or let's make a Z. For Z in, just scroll up a little bit. For Z in zip, and we're going to put in list 1, comma, list 2, right? And we're just going to print Z for us. Let's do print above. That's going to say a bunch of dashes, zip generator. So zip generator iterates through those lists and zips them together. So we're going to do that. We're going to print Z. So let's run it. So zip generator. So what zip generator does, it takes two lists and it produces a list of tuples that are going to have two corresponding values in order. So you got A5, C23, D42, E74, right? So it's kind of like, okay, cool, nice, fine. Well, the deal is like, if we want to happen to have two parallel lists that we want to build a dictionary out of, and I will show you in the instance where that actually happens, we can actually do the following, right? So let's do our dictionary comprehension. So we're gonna, I'll put dictionary comprehension and I'll just print the output instead of putting it into a variable. So to do a dictionary comprehension here, we're going to, we're gonna go do our thing, right? Then we're gonna say for, so because we are returning Z is actually getting a tuple, right? So we can unroll that tuple. So we can go K comma V, right? Again, our choice of, I'm just gonna keep K comma V because they're convenient for key and value, right? So K comma V for, for K comma V in zip list 1 comma list 2. I am going to build a list, right? So I'm going to be, K is going to be my key and V is going to be my value. So I'm just going to run it, see that it doesn't puke. So I did everything correctly. And so next thing, I'm going to just put print statement around this. Print. So what we had here, we basically took two parallel lists and we created a single dictionary out of them with key value pairs, right? And again, like that's kind of cool, but what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that depending on systems you're working with, there's one system in particular out there that's called Redis. And in Redis, you might be extracting values. You want to extract a record, right? The libraries already kind of do that for you, the breakdown, but the way the data is actually coming back from Redis is in this interesting format. So take input list that has key and value interleaving, use zip and list accessors to convert it to normal dictionary. So what in the world is happening? Let's just show what's happening. So we're gonna pretend we have this Redis output coming out in a list. And so what this list is going to have, I'm gonna type it multi-line so it's a little bit more visible, right? So let's just zoom in here. So we have value 1, and the next output is going to be 1, 2, 3, and then value 2, and the next output is going to be, I don't know, false, or no, it doesn't produce that. It's going to be 0, and then first name is going to be tester, and last name is going to be subject. Right, and so we have this like radius output literally coming in as just a list of strings. The only thing that we know is that this list is going to have an output where we have a value name followed by an actual value, followed by a value name, followed by an actual value, and it's guaranteed to come out in that order, and that's what the meaning of each individual value is. So we could have data fall out in this fashion out of systems, right? So the next thing that we want to do is we want to grab this, we want to pull it apart in our relative values, and then we're going to stitch it back together in a dictionary, because in a dictionary it's a much more meaningful data set that you can operate with, right? So the first step I would let you guys try to play with it. So first thing we want to do is we want to extract keys. So if you want to try to remember, so we want to produce keys out of radius output. We just want to fetch them. So we need to do something with an accessor here to get those. I'm going to give you a little bit to try to remember what you will need to do with the list. Let's take a look. So I think we're going to probably stick the landing on loops and messing with collections today, and that's probably going to be it. I don't think we're going to make it into functions. All right, so radius output, we want to just get keys out of it. So if you remember, we had our in accessor, we had this wonderful thing called step, right? So to get to step, we would do 2 colons, right? So it's like starting from going up 2, and then the last one was step. So if we put every second one in here, let's do print on keys just to see whether I did it right. Let's do a run. Yes, so I did it right. So we have value 1, value 2, first name, last name, right? So we extracted keys out of the radius output. So let's do values. So with values, it becomes a bit more tricky because we need, again, every second one, right? So we'll just go back to every second one, but we need to do something else differently, where not only do we get every second one, but we also don't start at 0, right? So if I'm not mistaken, all we need to do is put 1 in here, and let's print vals, and let's run that. Yes, so we got 123, 0, tester, subject. Cool, so we got that. Next thing we want to do is we want to do a trying to think if we want to do it. Let's just start in like really open way, and then we're just gonna turn it into one-liner. So we're gonna do for let's do again key comma value. We're going to zip keys and vals, not equal, sorry, for in, what am I doing? For key comma value in zip colon, we're going to need to append things to a dictionary, right? So let's going back to our let's call it result equal. So we'll start with empty dictionary, and all we're going to do is going to say result sub key is equal to value. And then let's just print our result and run. So we did it, right? We created a result dictionary. We grabbed key and value that we extracted every other one. We zipped them together so they were shipped as a package one-to-one. And then we shoved it into a dictionary to print the result. So as we would do with Python, we're gonna one-line this thing. So print f colon. So let's do a faster way of doing this, right? So we're gonna do f colon. It's gonna keep helping me. Let's do one line. And in squiggly braces here, oh boy, I think it's gonna evaluate okay. I think we can, yeah, so we can put squiggly brace in here. So what we're trying to do, we're gonna take, so let's go all the way to like what goes into zip expression first, right? We're just gonna do a weird way. So into zip expression, we need our keys, which is radius output colon 2. And we need our values, which is radius output 1 colon 2, right? So we did every other one and then shifted every other one. So we zip those up. Then don't forget we have two squiggly braces, right? Because the first squiggly brace is for the F string. The second squiggly brace is for the dictionary comprehension. In case that doesn't drive you mad already, here we go. All right, so we have this zip, right? So now we need to run a for loop for our k and v in that zip. So we got that. And then all we need to do is just put our k colon v into expression here. So we got this one line, well, mostly one line. It actually carried to the second line here. Drum roll. Yeah. So that worked. So honestly, I mean, the expression itself, I'll just copy paste it out in above just so that it's a little bit more readable. Oh, yeah. Control C, Control V, need to get better at that. So yeah, so that was the expression itself. So we went and we took radius output, we did every other one, then we offset it by 1, did every other one, right? Because our input was value, name, value, name, value, name, value. So we did that. We zipped them up so that they run in parallel. And then when they run in parallel, this zip turns them into a bunch of tuples and feeds out one tuple at a time. So it fed out tuple. We unrolled it into k and v as values. And then we did k colon v colon. K colon v to go key and value to indicate what goes into key, what goes into value. And that resulted in us reshuffling the data in the shape we needed. And so that's the one-liner that we ended up with here. So another little twist right before a closer here is that you can actually do filtering while you're doing list comprehension. So let's generate a list of, I don't know, 30 items, right? And then let's filter everything divisible by 0. Sorry, divisible by 3. I don't know why by 0. Divisible by 3. So what we can do here, right? So first we're gonna do just generate our, so let's do print. I'm just gonna shove it to print so that we, for posterity of time. So what we're going to do, we're going to print a list of 30 numbers, right? So let's do before that print filtering items in the list. So I'm just gonna kind of rapidly drop that in here. I'm gonna zoom in so we can see it better. And so we do print, right? So if we just want to generate a list of 30 numbers, we're gonna do I for I in range 30, right? It's gonna generate numbers 0 through 29, right? So range 30 does not include the last value. Let's run that. We get our list of 0 through 29. So that's cool. So now if we want to exclude every number that's divisible by 3, so we literally follow the for loop statement with an if statement here. So if I'm gonna embarrass myself and try to remember the mode. I mode 3, I believe that's the Pythonic way of doing it, is not equal to 0. So what we're doing here, we're saying, hey, for, just run the range for every I that you extract. However, filter on this Boolean condition if I mode 3 not equal to 0, right? So we want to make sure that it's not divisible by 3. So if we run a print on this, it's actually going to work. And if we're going to look at that, we got our 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 13, blah, 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 right? So it filtered out everything divisible by 3. So this is another twist to list comprehension that shows us that we're actually able to, as we reshape the data, as we do anything we want with it, we can actually also throw in a condition on which we're going to exclude elements from the list if we want to filter them. So this, this creates this very potent capability within Python to manage data and mush data together and do all kinds of things like that. And these expressions, as you can see, are rather simple, but you can go much crazier. We're hitting right on the money here with time. So this concludes our loops. We're going to go in full earnest into functions next time. And thank you very much for watching. And until the next time, we'll see you guys.